Hello, hello. Welcome to the Strategy of Finance podcast, where we celebrate the profession and the professionals in the world of finance. We endeavor to unpack their journeys to understand what moves them, get inspired by their triumphs, learn from their experiences, and most of all, connect with them at a personal level. Today, we have a senior leader in the procurement space, someone who has been a procurement head for one of the largest companies in India, Wipro. Without further ado, let me welcome Murali Sundararajan. Murali, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rohit. Nice to be on the show. Great introduction. I really like the way you introduced. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Why don't we kick it off with a little background on you? Tell us, how did you make your foray into this world of procurement? It doesn't seem like there is something that, there's a straight line which can lead you to procurement. So very curious to understand what landed you up in this space, and then how did you make your growth into this space and became the leader of procurement at Wipro?
Yeah, it's a kind of a long story, but I'll try to be as precise. I did my engineering long back from Delhi, and then after that, uh, basically worked on many engineering firms at various roles. And I always wanted to be connect with the external world. So there are two chances. One is you get into marketing or sales, or the other one is the procurement, or many companies have a thing called contracts. So that's how I wanted to be I didn't like the marketing and sales side. So I wanted to be, so that's one of the reasons. So, and that's how I got into contracts, quality. So I first started with quality and quality assurance and that kind of job, which is also an exposure to the outside world, suppliers and all. And that's the journey. I've been in manufacturing and a lot of big names and handling a huge value of spend, and then finally into IT and IT services, which gels with the work what I've done, which is a combination of services, manufacturing, procurement of raw materials, components, everything. So that's how I came into this, but I never have a regret of becoming. But you're right. There's no specific course that you take, like an architect or a finance person, where you take certain course and get into that role. There's no degree called procurement or purchasing, and that makes it more interesting. So we can always, there's no certification course today. I mean, it's there, but it's not a degree course.
So tell us, what made you get into engineering, first of all? Did you want to go into maybe the software space, IT services space, or what was basically the thought around getting into engineering versus something else?
Yeah, I mean, I was from the beginning, I was a science student, and I certainly wanted to do certain. So, and during those days, IT and services were not there literally. Right? I mean, it was there probably abroad, but not in India. So the basic three course lines were there, like electrical engineering, mechanical, and civil, right? And then we had electronics and electrical later part, right? So that's how I got into mechanical, which is like a base engineering, and I wanted to be in the engineering since I used to like science. So got into some prestigious university in Delhi and did my engineering from there. And after that, worked in many of the mechanical industries, but slowly I got into electronics. So it fascinated me, and electronics was picking up. So electronics products and electronic manufacturing and the firmware attached to that, services and software attached to that. So that's how I landed into this, and it's also a passion what you do. And fortunately, I was lucky. What I wanted, I was able to do it. Sometimes it is not possible. A lot of parents, they say engineering kar lo, right? You do something and then we'll see. But I was very clear I want to do engineering. I was not a topper and all, but at the same time I was very practical and so still was quite ranked student in the college. But that didn't really help. But I was wanted to do the practical side, and that helped me in the engineering when I joined companies. It gave me that field. And procurement was something which is neither a highly technical nor it is completely commercial. So it's a techno-commercial. And a good procurement personnel can do a great job if he understands the technical side of it. If not, the engineering guys will say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking. So let me decide what I want. You just place the contract of it. So that's where the role is different for me.
What made your first move into procurement? You were an engineer. What took that? What was the instigator behind that first move?
Actually, that's a good question, because most of the companies in India, like, they had procurement means some commerce guy or some BA or BSc, and they'll do some transaction. And when I joined some of these companies, which was led by TVS and Schneider Electric, and so they were advertising engineers because they wanted someone to understand the specifications, someone they understand what they're buying, right? And it was not easy. If not, it was always a hand holding by some technical guy to explain to him what we want, right? So this was one thing which made me think that as an engineer, I can contribute there more. And whenever I walk into any procurement team earlier, there are very few engineers, and mostly were commerce guys or. So that made me also think that I can contribute here more. And plus, I wanted to be the externals. I want to see the external community, talk to suppliers, vendors, and so that met both the conditions.
Do you remember what was the most difficult item for you to learn when you made that switch from engineering to procurement? I'm sure there were a lot of different sort of, just pure job description or job related nuances that comes along with that shift. What was the toughest thing that you had to resonate with?
Yeah, I mean, after you came in, and it's not all roses, right? When you came in procurement, then you after probably 6 months or 1 year, you were regretting that why did I get into this, right? I mean, so the reason is that the procurement, unfortunately, in many companies, not now to a great extent, it's changed, but they were doing more transactional. So, connecting the dots, placing some requisition will come, and then they convert that requisition into a contract or a PO, and it was highly transactional. There was no value add. As an engineer, you always wanted to, and fresh from the college, and you want to apply some of those things. So that was one thing which kind of I was in between. I was thinking I think it's not the right thing. But then somewhere in the background, I was thinking that if I go back again to the engineering side or factory side, so that will be more like again like getting inside a box, with within the company you're communicating, you're not communicating outside. Then also I thought it's probably an opportunity for me to change the procurement thought process. It is not just just sake of buying, right? So that's what I used to say. Buying is more than buying, but people don't understand that. So they just think buying, just buy it, right? So that's where I thought I can make a change, and I use some of the processes today. Even my old seniors and my colleagues, they really appreciate the detailing of the technical knowledge bringing into the procurement, how to understand the spec, how to do a cost of the product, how to do a cost of the component what you're buying. So some of the questions I will always ask a new person who's joining: do you know what you're buying? So if he doesn't know what he's buying, his job is just like, he's just getting a salary. He's just coming in the morning, seeing some requisition. He sends it to some suppliers and then get a quote, and he doesn't know what he's buying. So I think this helped me to change that thought process wherever I went. But it's a long journey, but it's better now.
Makes sense. I completely resonate with
Yeah,
when you say buying is not just buying. I've always thought of spend management as more the art of buying rather than the art of spending.
correct, right.
Uh, Makes sense. How did the foray into Wipro happen?
Yeah, so I was there when Wipro, there was a subsidiary of Wipro called Eco Energy, where I was also involved or engaged in my earlier company in procurement and renewable space. So I also worked in a lot of startups in US and the renewable space, right? So that's how when Eco Energy started in Wipro as a subsidiary, they were looking for professionals who have experience in renewables, including solar, wind, bio, and biogas, and also the IT space of services where you control the energy of your lights and automating. Today, of course, you see many warehouses where the lights are automated, and based on the load you will switch on, you save energy. So those was the requirement which Wipro started, and that's how I got into it because I had the experience. So that was a very short period, but unfortunately we did a lot of projects in Wipro with solar and others. But unfortunately, as a company, they didn't look at a strategic area and they got out of it. And then I went back to my old company, Schneider Electric, and I was working there as head of their, one of the division. It's called the IT division. So basically, they supply products and services for the IT industry, like UPS and everything. So that's how I was there. And then again, it happened that Wipro had a position for a CPO role, and they were really asking me to join and take this role. And I was kind of nervous because I've been in a product company, and of course, software and IT was there as part of that, but not really worked in IT establishments. But I took this challenge, and I sort of became a CPO of that. And we did well. We managed a very large spend.
Awesome. I think it's a good segue for us to dig into the field of procurement and unpack that as much as we can. But before we go there, can contextualize for us a little more in terms of your experience in procurement across various companies?
So yeah, since it was a worldwide requirement, and one of the thing was when we started, the spend was very less. It was less than $1 billion. So one of the thing what we wanted to do is, since we worked on a centralized procurement, and it's always debatable whether centralized procurement is good or a distributed one. But somehow I feel centralized one is better if it is managed well. So that's how we were, and we went with the centralized thing, and one of my goal was how to increase the spend. Right. Today, the spend is happening, but it's not happening with the proper governance, proper process of procurement, process of identifying the same, and giving fair chance to newcomers, giving fair chance to startups, because the business side and they don't have the time. to do all this, right? So they are more worried about closures and deliveries to the customer, and nothing wrong with what they're doing. So, but there was somebody is required to support this. So they are our internal customers. The marketing, sales, and the delivery teams are our internal customers. So we give them that support to them, that how we can do this more effectively, cost effectively. At the same time, bringing the governance and bringing new teams, suppliers or vendors or partners into the system, and looking at technology also, how we can effectively use technology to seamlessly work across the world with multiple languages. Countries working in Germany, France, and all, they will not even register your company in English. They want everything in German, right? So how do you, same thing with Japan, same thing with China, same thing with many countries. So how do we do this at the same time bringing a uniform, it's not like a civil code, it's a uniform code of conduct of business, right? So we had a lot of this code of conduct of suppliers, code of conduct for partners and all that. So how do we translate that into their law, into their country, what is required, right? Like when you register vendor, you'll ask, can you give me your PAN number or Aadhaar number and all India, but it doesn't work in US or Germany. So how do we do that seamlessly? Not like you send a mail. How do we do that in the system? So a lot of work we did, and that's how we could increase the spend. And we have to do a selling here within the internal team, that we will be part of your team without stopping your work. And so it has to sell, and they should feel happy about what we are doing.
And then how many people were you managing?
So, yeah, we were all over the world, but we did more, since we were using the systems more and portals, and which we enabled. So there's a large team. So we divided this into a strategic team and a transactional team. So transactional team is more like a service, what do you call that? Shared service. So they share the thing for all the divisions within the company, and their job is to convert to a contract, convert to a PO, convert to whether the contract is when it is expiring. So those are the things which they do. There's a team of around, worldwide we had a team of around 30 or 35 around that, and they were mostly in less in Bangalore, more in like places like Cochin and other Vishakhapatnam and some of these places. But we had here also, and Hyderabad, Bangalore, like that. And they will work hand in hand with shared service of finance, the AP team, right? Because there are a lot of things are shared with them. And then there's a strategic team, which is part of my team, the strategic team, which is the shared services doesn't report to me. They are independently distinct, but they work for us. We become their customers, right? So the strategic team, worldwide, we were around about 50 people, and we had because the businesses are very different, very fast, very quick. IT thing is that you don't have time, like 2 days tomorrow and all, like you got to work around the clock. So we were around 50, but we were planning to bring it down to around 30. I think they are now at linear than what we were. But we were at probably 100. We brought it down to 50 and still able to deliver with the systems. But we need that kind of thing and this is not that everybody's front end. There's a governance team. The governance team is to do internal audit, find out whether there's any gaps in the other thing. So there's a governance team working independently, reporting to the governance team world for the company. But they're still part of my team. And then there is a strategic team where they will look at partner engagement, look at negotiation and all. And there's one more team where they work on more of internal systems, IT system, how we can automate something, how we can bring RPA, how we can automate some of the recurring processes. So that's all. The 50 is comprised of all this.
So quite a sizable number of team members, including
Right.
both in the strategic as well as the services teams. Very cool.
Yeah.
And just maybe the last piece in terms of contextualizing, how many vendors were you managing on a yearly basis?
Yeah, that's a big challenge we had. I mean, the exact number, it will probably about around 8-9K worldwide, but that was our objective also, to increase the spend and reduce the base. So when we do that, the more number of transactions, there's more number of work for everyone, not just for the procurement or the strategic team, including the AP team, the governance team, more number of invoices coming, more number of work. So we did that, but there are certain constraints that we cannot do in certain countries, because we need those vendors. We cannot optimize there. But we have done optimization that 8,000 to probably around 6,000, and then we had a target to bring it to around 3,000. Maybe it is a work in progress. It's continuous, and so that you reduce number of this thing, but at the same time you have multiple vendors for a work, right? It's not that you're trying to reduce it to one vendor, one this thing. So and then there are a lot of noise vendors, like one-time vendor, like there's some event happening. Big event happening. You need to register that, but he becomes a vendor in your system. But he's really not a vendor or a supplier, right? He's just a one-time. I don't know, next time he may show up or not. So, but in the system when you run, it will show that he's a vendor, right? So that's how we should segregate that, and we should do that.
Got it. Very cool. That I guess does a good job in terms of contextualizing the experience and the vastness of the procurement
Yeah.
team that you led and the procurements that you managed. Now, with that, I would love to get into some specifics. So, why don't we start there with clarifying how are supply chain, sourcing, procurement, and vendor management, these four things, related and different? So, again, supply chain, sourcing,
Mm.
procurement, vendor management.
Yeah, I think it starts with sourcing, right? The first thing what you have to do, it's not like, suppose you need to have some hotels for an event, right? That's not a big thing to source, right? You can just put the country, the state, and the city. You'll get the people, right? That's not a. So when I say sourcing here, like in the shares in the IT industry or in the service industry, like what? So internally we need to decide within the company what we want to outsource, what we want to do in house, right? So whatever we decide, what we want to outsource, like, maybe the facilities management. A lot of companies say that we don't want to do all this facility management internally. Just give it to some outside guys. Like, there are many people, right? So other way of thinking is, no, we don't want to outsource this. We want to do in house because we learned this process and we can use this as a revenue for other companies. So it's a thought process on where you are. So once we decide this as a company, as a strategy, that is not just by the procurement team, it's a company's strategy, that what we want to outsource, what we want to do in house. But that's based on data what we give to them. Then once we decide what we want to outsource, whether it can be manpower, it can be hardware, it can be software. I mean, these are our major spends. Like if you speak your major spend in any services, your hardware, your software, your services, hospitality, your facility management, your IT management. How do you manage your IT? Well, suppose you have 2 lakh people, how do you manage their laptop? Or what is the life of that? How do you recycle that? Still, we want to be green. We don't want to trash the electronic trash. How do we do all that? So those are the areas where the sourcing plays a role. Not really on getting some event done or something done. Maybe the spend is high. Like suddenly we are doing an event for some roadshow. We may spending about some $3-4 million, right, worldwide, somewhere in you. But that's big a spend, but that's not strategic, right? That's more like we need this. We got to have this place. We need that's more of a showcasing, right? Versus competitive buying, competitive sourcing, right? And technology implementation of technology. So sourcing involves this identifying what is the right partner to source, what technology they are using, how we can use that technology to integrate with us and reduce the use of people. I mean, wherever possible, you got to clean the floor in a bathroom. You can't automate that as of now, right? Maybe future, but some of that we can do. But some things which can be automated, we still put a bunch of people, right? So those are the areas where we work with them, how we can reduce people. That was always our thought, that how do we reduce people in the facilities doing boring job where they don't have any chance to improve their there's no promotion. You keep doing it throughout your life, right? So those are things where we want to outsource, bring in technology to reduce. So we have to identify right partner who understand this. But if he says, no, I just put a bunch of people, don't worry about it. So that we don't go to them. So sourcing involves understanding and thinking the big picture, that how to reduce boring work, how to reduce cost, how to reduce cost can be only by reducing number of people doing some standard job and increasing the people there. You need more facility, put more bunch of people there. So those are the thought process, right? And the same thing in contract management. How do you manage IT services contract? How do you manage software? So there are many software in a company because every customer will say, I need this, I need that. And then we as a supplier, we will go and give it to them. But internally, we come back and say, how do we consolidate partners? Because there will be too many small players, right? How do we consolidate at the same time giving the output what the customer wants, what our end customer wants, I mean. So this is the work of a strategic sourcing, and it's not easy. And still meeting the price target, right? We can all have all this fancy thing. We want to reduce people, we want to do that technology, but price is more. No. How do we reduce cost and still bring in this? So that strategic sourcing requires, deep thinking, integrating with the team members in the technology space, with the business leaders, and then working with the partners. So it is not that easy, like what. So it's a continuous process, but the right person have to be there and trained to do this. So that's
Got
a
it. So
different
that's,
strategic sourcing and
yeah.
the procurement and the shared service.
How about supply chain? How is supply chain a sort of an umbrella
Yeah,
term that includes all
yeah,
of
supply
them?
chain. Right, I agree. Supply chain is an umbrella which has strategic sourcing, which has logistics, which has shared services like you're creating a PO and the monitoring, including giving to the customer the tracking details when it will arrive, whether the customer wants some warehousing facilities, whether we can keep it in a warehouse and ship it to him. A third-party warehouse management. There are a lot of third-party warehouse management guys, like where it's not just the goods and services, it's also the services, right? Services also we can have third party where they will have a bunch of people ready to get into the thing. It's like a warehousing of people. So whether you want those all come under supply chain. So strategic sourcing is more I would say the supply chain strategic sourcing is the most difficult and more engaging and creative, and where you can apply your engineering strength. Even if you're not an engineer, you can think logically and bring in something. And the logistics and this thing is more delivery, right? Get things done, get things moving, how we can improve the time, whether we can find a better partner to deliver faster, the last mile connectivity and all that thing, right?
Got it. So we got supply chain, then procurement, and then within procurement, we have the strategic sourcing and the vendor management.
Vendor management, yeah.
Got it. How is procurement strategic to a company, and why is it so necessary?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, today, if you see most of the companies, the procurement used to report to some facility head, or that's how the procurement was viewed at. But that's not anymore. Last, I would say, probably around 10 years, the reporting has changed to a CFO or a CEO level. So most of the procurement I see in IT, they are reporting to CFO at the least, if not to the CEO. So that itself shows why it is strategic. Because what is the top line where the marketing sales do, then certainly the procurement team helps the company on the bottom line. And at the same time, one is procurement as a process, as a team, or as a concept to reduce cost, right? That's what everybody has been told. But how do you reduce cost when things are not in your control? Customer controls a lot of things, right? Your end customer. So that is where you come in, how to bring in your internal cost structure less, how to cut your number of what you call the processes in between, how to reduce the time. The time is money here. Like sometimes a simple process goes through some 10, 15 steps, and somebody is not doing something in between, and nobody knows why it's stuck, right? How do we bring those transparency in that? That's the system. How to reduce the takt time of doing any work. So even vendor registration, like large companies, I don't want to name them, they take a month to register a vendor. Even now, some of them are doing that, but it's not necessary, right? So we were also like that. Earlier, how we have probably brought it down to a week's time, 4 to 5 days, and we were telling we'll do probably in 2 days, depending on the country and time zone. So it is possible. What is necessary and what is mandatory, right? And then what is good to have. So good to have, we can have the team work on with a supplier partner to have all these things, because you've got to develop a vendor or a supplier. You cannot expect that everything is perfect, and you get a vendor who understands green, who understands child labor, who understands everything on ESG. You don't have that kind of ecosystem. You got to develop those. So that's separate team, where I used to have a team called the vendor development team, along with the governance team, work with the vendors to bring in women entrepreneurs, bring in more green usage of materials or services. So this is a separate team, and how to save and go and audit them and help them how they can reduce their cost. So everybody wants to reduce cost, but the owner of that company doesn't understand how to do it, or he doesn't have the time to do that, because they're a small team, and they can't afford to have big teams to work on this. That's where our team goes and helps them. They benefit and we benefit. But everybody cannot do this. I agree with that. But even in a smaller company, if you have a smaller team, 1 or 2 guys working continuously and is good at it, it is possible. But that mindset of the owner has to change, right? Why he needs this, right?
Very cool. That begs the question, when should a company hire in-house procurement experts? And should it always start with the head of procurement, or would you rather hire someone maybe on a junior level, and then once you have 2-3 people at the junior level, then bring in a head of procurement?
I feel we should hire a head of procurement to create a team. The head of procurement hiring should be very, very detailed, and what's his thought process, what he wants to do. I mean, the person should also understand the company where he's going to join or is going to be selected, what kind of business they are in. Then they should come with some thought that this is the structure we have, how we are going to improve that, what kind of people management, training, skill, right? It is not that you just hire a person and he gets off from tomorrow, right? So I always say that if you want people to see, it'll take 1 year for the guy to fire from all the barrels, right? It's going to take time for him to understand. So how you are going to create a team who is not just join after 3 months he wants to leave? How do you create that kind of ecosystem, right? Where he's learning and you are able to get the benefits. So if he's learning, in addition to the salary and other thing, I don't want to get into that. If he's learning, he will stay. And if he's seeing the opportunity to grow and he has the thing to empower him and not go and do micromanagement, he will certainly deliver. So I feel head of procurement thing is more people management, peer management, working with the CEO and the partners to create that culture. He should bring in that culture of innovation, culture of understanding how to reduce cost, not by just beating the supplier, but how to reduce cost strategically. What are the cost elements in it? How you can help him to reduce cost in turn you reduce. So I think this is very important to have a good person it's not always that, everything will match, but even 60-70% he understand, he will develop and then create a team. And what kind of team, how many people, what systems we should use, whether we should have a fully automated system or what kind of spend money budget is there initially to spend on a system. All this thing he has to understand, which the junior guy will not be able to do. He will get into the transaction immediately.
What do you think is the right time for a company to hire the procurement leader? Is it some stage of their revenue? Is it some kind of spend under management number? How do you contextualize that?
I feel any company should have a person. Level can be different. If it's a startup, I would say a startup requires more the need for a procurement person than probably anybody, right? Today, the startups have no clue like how they are, because they are the founder or the person who is doing, he's more in the domain space of, like, let's say, running a restaurant, or he's running a IT services company, or he's running a BPO service. He's more expert in that, or he's a chemical expert. He doesn't know how this thing works, right? So, and then it gets into a lot of mess later on both from a audit point of view. And when they want to go for IPO, it's a nightmare for them to put all this in place. So I feel start anytime, beginning itself is the right thing. The levels can be different, right? You don't need a senior guy like, about 40 years, 25 years experience and all. You got to probably look at a 5 years, 10 years experience with the energy level. And that's one thing I say, the procurement guys have a lot of energies. They got to keep their, and to come to the office, they should be charged, right? If not, it's not the right place for a person. You'll be completely drained at the end of the day, right?
So beyond energy, what are the traits that you look for when you hire for the procurement team? As you said, there is no clear straight line path in terms of you do this kind of a course, that kind of a course, and you are kind of, at least qualified to arrive for this particular job. So what are the traits that you look for?
So the traits, one of the traits, like, one of the thought process in a company which is already running, established, and or you want to start with somebody new. When you're hiring a fresh guys, right? Fresh engineers or somebody who is interested in procurement, the guy will not know much. You would have just heard from his friend that, procurement is good, you can meet suppliers and all that. So somebody who has got some thought on that, if you are looking for hiring a fresh guy, and if he's an engineer, I would prefer an engineer or a diploma or something. I'm not against finance or this thing, but we can look at them also. One is that the communication should be good. The guy should be go-getter. Communication should be good. He should be able to, and I say communication good, not like, talking some great English and all. It's clarity in speaking, like, what he's speaking, how he speaks, and he's able to convey what he wants. So that is very important. But if you see, there are a lot of software coders and engineering guys, they will hardly able to speak. It will be very difficult to make them speak, right? But they are great at their work. So that's a different area. So if you are going to get, it's something like sales, right? So you got to be a good communicator. I think that's the basic thing I do. Then second thing is we look at is that, how passionate he is about, like, whether he's got the, he's like, the passion we can see in him. Like, he's like kind of laid back. I'm okay. I'm just looking for a job, and he tells that this thing is, I cannot go out of Bangalore, or I cannot go to Bombay. I have a problem. My father is ill. Those things are gone, like, so we have to disconnect the personal thing with the thing, with whatever personal, everybody has personal issues. So I think these are the two traits from the soft side. On the technical side, certainly I would like to know whether, suppose he's a fresher, like what kind of course he has done and what's his strength, whether he likes engineering, mechanical engineering or electrical, or he is more in software. So that will give an idea where to place him, whether I should place him in IT procurement, whether I should place him in a facility management. Right. So I think these are very important. But if I'm hiring an experienced guy with 5 years or 10 years, certainly look at the companies he has worked and what coming systems, basic thing. And all these things will matter also, his passion, his energy level, what he has done. What are the value add he has done? If some guy comes and say, I created some 1,000 POs in a month, straight away you can have a coffee and tell him to leave. Like, so I think we have to understand what value add he has done, what changes he has brought in the company from where it was and what it is, and how it helped the company. And I think that's important. And then how he's dealing with the partners and how his negotiation skills, what will he do? Negotiation is not because you're in a large company, you put a hat and all these guys are sitting there as slaves, and those days are over. So negotiation is like understanding our requirement, understanding the negotiation company, like, what company they are from, understanding their margin. You can, if it is an IT, it's a listed company, you can go and see their margins and all that, and then talk about that. You have to prepare. So we used to call that a preparation time for negotiation. So a lot of people just they just go into the negotiation table without even understanding what they negotiate. So you got to prepare well, just like your marketing guys do. When they go to a customer, they know the history of the guy, right? Of the customer and the person whom they are speaking, what they like, what they don't like, what is their. So the same way it has to be this side. So that kind of thought process should be there when I'm interviewing. I will ask him always, how do you prepare for a negotiation? You'll say, yeah, I'll just go. I'm a very good negotiator. So then the process is not there. So some of these things we have to check. Otherwise, you're right. There's no thumb rule that, if this meets these other conditions, we can hire him. But I have hired people who are not in procurement and they had the passion to do and they've done well.
Got it. Very cool.
Yeah.
How has procurement evolved over the last, call it 20, 25 years?
Oh, it's changed a lot. I mean, because I've been in the procurement from last 30 years. So last 20 years back, it was more transactional, and everything will be done by everyone. So, like, I had a team. They will do the strategic sourcing. He will also go and run and meet the business requirement or production requirement. He will also do the logistics function. He will also do the cost reduction. Right? Different team will pound on him. So the CFO and the CEO will say, okay, how much you reduce cost. So he has to be ready with that details. The production team or the business team will say that, how can you meet my customer requirement? The delivery date is already late and you guys are not doing anything. So how do you do that? And then at the same time, how do you meet the audit requirement of the finance department? Like, whether you're having so all this was with one cap, one guy doing, one department doing everything, right? So that has evolved a lot now. So now most companies have realized that you cannot have everything done and it becomes a hodgepodge. You don't do a good job. So the logistic function is different now. The supply chain, what you call, the shared service is different. And then the strategic sourcing is different now. So that has changed a lot. So most of the companies, they have procurement and purchasing. So the purchasing is more strategic and procurement is more shared service transactional. And that procurement transactional, there are a lot of work can be done with the technology, AI coming in. RPA we already use, but AI driven thing, you can do wonders there. But people have to embrace, and generative AI is an area where you can do excellent work in the shared service area, right? Which BPO is also using now.
More specialization and use of technology.
Technology, yeah.
What kind of OKRs should a procurement team have, Murali?
So one of the things is, a lot of people, procurement has a kind of outside world. When you go and tell your relative that I'm in procurement, they look at you with a different thing. You might be making a lot of money. So I think first thing is the integrity, I think, and it is not easy. And you got to bring that culture as head of the department or head of the unit or the CEO that this will not be tolerated. We can have inefficiencies, right? And we always say that a guy can be a bit inefficient. Probably he's got some thing happened in his family and he's not in a good state of mind for last 1 week or 15 days. It happens with everybody, right? But we cannot have integrity sacrificed. And that's one thing which Wipro and all my companies have kind of resonated with my own thought. And that's where I really like working. So I work with companies like TVS where it is very, very high integrity. So even like claiming a travel bill, right? In the earlier days, they'll, 80, they'll make it 180 or one will add something like simple thing, like, small thing. It's all small petty money. But when a guy is doing that, he can go any extent to do anything. So those guys we don't encourage. So I think the first thing, thing is to look for integrity and trust and this thing. And it is not easy. We have to try. But always keep a watch on this. And anything you feel it's a no tolerance zone, right? He would have done a great job in other areas, but this is though he's not part of the team. So I think that culture has to be brought in, and a lot of companies are doing that, but a lot of companies are not doing also for various reasons. So one good example is the real estate. Real estate. I mean, one of the things I said, I don't want anybody from real estate, but it doesn't mean that all real estate is bad. But they have to change the image. So who has to do that? I don't know, but it is bad, right? So like that, I think we have to keep this in mind. This is an area which you cannot sacrifice. And there will be always some people doing something wrong in a large company. And we got to find that out. And that's where the head of the department, my governance team work independently. And then we got to take action, quick action, not like do another. My boss used to always tell me, I'm trusting you. You feel that guy is not okay. Don't do investigation. Just take a decision and close it. So that kind of thing, we have to move fast. You cannot do investigation and all that,
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What kind of yearly goals make sense for a procurement team? Is it more around cost savings? Are there other elements? How do you think about, because that's just one part of the equation on the procurement team perspective, right? That's not everything.
No, you're right. Yeah. The KPIs or the goals. I mean, the cost reduction and this thing is it's there. It's not that you can escape that. Generally around, when I say 100% goals, I used to always put that you should still have to do that 60% or 70% of your cost reduction goals. And the cost reduction goals are not like just dollar terms or in rupee terms. What process reduction you've done, how much stack time you've reduced, because those are all also converted into cost. How much efficiency you've brought in closing a transaction, right? Sometimes, so all those things are, so there's a soft element and there's a, the real figures in numbers, right? One is number and the other is soft. So that is 60-70% of your goals. The other goals is your team member development. How have you done the hiring? How many people have left in your, so I had some 4 general managers within the 4 divisions. How many of them have left? And what is that feedback? So one is that I talk to general managers, but I don't talk to them every day. I talk to the people below. So what is they telling about this? You can get a feel. They may not tell about your boss immediately, but they'll give an indirect message. Sir, I did that, but my boss didn't approve it. So right. So those things, feelers, you got to keep on watching, and you have to bring in that what kind of value add they are doing. So that is one on the number of people staying in the company and what is the value add they have done in addition to cost reduction. Then process improvement, governance, like, which is basically ensuring that there's a fair amount of arm's length dealing with the partners. How he's doing that. And so these are some of the KPIs. In addition to that, there will be KPIs given by the business unit. I'm leading in this business unit, right? I need some special help. So create some special force, task force kind of a thing, cross-functional team, and create that CFT as a goal, how they are doing that. So all these things will become part of that. And main thing is, I feel today, the speed of the thing we are working, speed is very, very important. I certainly look for speed at how quickly you're able to do, meeting all your requirement on cost and integrity or governance and all, how quickly you're able to do this. So if the speed is too much and you met all other things, it's of no use, actually.
In your view, how and when should a procurement team be involved in a purchase?
They should be involved in all purchases. That's called the spend expansion or the spend management. And where they should get early. So what happens is a lot of times the business team or the engineering teams or the people who wants to deliver, the delivery team, they decide everything. And then they tell that we got to buy this, right? Or this. So we always say that's the reason I have divided, and most of them work. We have divided the team with the business team. I put a business guy in my team, sits with them. He doesn't sit in my floor. He sits with the business team floors, right? He works with the business team to understand early in the stage what new customer is coming in, what they want. So that's so what happens. He also has the time to prepare, time to work on suggestions, time to float inquiries, look at vendor development, all that. But if they come at the last moment, there's nothing much you can do, right? You can just say that, okay, I got some 3 codes and this is good. So just close it, right? But if they get involved early, so we always tell the business team, whether you like the procurement guys or not, we would like to add value, but please involve them at early. And that is not easy by just saying, we got to showcase that I'm putting a person with you. You do, it's your guy, right? So that's how it works. Because if you're working as a separate arm, right, watching them, they'll say that these guys don't know, let's do all the work and then throw the ball over to him. So we don't want that. That the team has to work in cohesion with the internal customer. So early. So
very cool.
You have to get early. Yeah.
Can we now dig into maybe some specific tactics around the various elements of procurement? Right? Let's start with sourcing. Can you maybe talk about 2 to 3 best practices for sourcing, and if there are 2 to 3 common missteps that people can avoid?
Yeah, the best step in sourcing is that do some with the internet available today, and it also depends on where you're sourcing. Let's say you're sitting in Bangalore or in Bombay, and you want to do a sourcing for a deal for a customer in Germany, and still you have somebody in Germany, probably 1 or 2 guys we put in. How do you do that effectively, right? So I think that's where you've got to do network. You've got to go to the Chamber of Commerce there if you don't know the country, and find out who are the players, right? And then probably have your guy, if he's there in Germany as one of the extras, then do some kind of study. What are the other IT companies over there? What are they doing for the similar role? We got to do some research, right? And suppose you don't have anybody in Germany and you have to still do the work. You have to use the government websites, and today the Indian websites also gives a lot of information, but it was not that great compared to you go to Japan. The Japan trade, I mean, if you open, everything is there what you want. Like that, Germany is good. France is also not bad. US is not that great, but so you have to do some kind of a research study and identify what kind of players are there in the market, and then probably reach out to them, give an introduction. So that's the selling part. That a lot of people will not know I'm from Infosys or I'm from TCS or Wipro. They say, who is this, right? So we got to do a lot of selling and do that talk and all that. And somebody already knows that, it is easier. So I think this is very important in sourcing. And then this is the use of technology and websites and other things. The other thing is that you know that what is the labor rate with the IT service, or what is the labor rate in Germany. If you take Germany, Frankfurt and all, it is like $43 per hour, the labor rate, versus India it is around probably $3-4 now. So what is the labor rate? What kind of cost will be? So you can do all those the thing and keep it ready, right? That's how it is. Because this is all global sourcing. We are not saying that just source it in India, right? Especially for large companies. It's global. And even for smaller companies, there are players across the world now. Yeah. I would like to probably source for some work from Mexico. It's very good, right? I can source it from Philippines. I can get things done for my AP work, right? Or for my shared service. If I get the whole thing done in Philippines, I can do it half the cost than what I'm doing in anywhere in India. So it all depends on how you view this.
Makes sense. Any specific missteps that you want to talk about that people should avoid?
Yeah, misstep is that if you don't go prepared, you will be bullied by your business and your business teams that we have to close this, and this is what I have found, and just close this, right? So what happens that doesn't meet your governance requirement, that doesn't meet any of the things. You have not done anything, right? As a people, you're just a body to do a transaction. So I think you got to avoid if you can avoid in a 100 transactions you're doing, even some 20 of them you do like this, you're still okay. 80 you have done a good job, but if the 80 are like this, then you got to think, why are you there in the first place, right? I mean, the guy himself can do it and give it to the shared service. So I think these are all very important that, if you don't add value, I feel that you should not be in that role.
Got it. What kind of risk management is involved with vendors? That also seems to be a big area where a lot of focus
Yeah,
is
it's very
going.
big. Yeah, risk is so there are a lot of risk criteria. There's a political risk, there's a geographical risk, and then there's a risk within the, business what we are doing, right? So the geopolitical and, the country and political, that's very, very difficult, but we do that. Like suppose you are sourcing something from some country in Africa or in this thing, you got to look at the geopolitical risk. And if it is a single source, so you got to mitigate the risk. Let's say that you have to still do, you got to look at two sources, you got to look at three sources, so that there is a geopolitical risk is avoided. And then there is a financial risk, whether the company is, stable or not. How do you find out if it's not listed? So you got to get some of the data. Some of them may not like to share that. How do you ensure that your financial risk? There are some companies now, startup companies where I use them, where they put some people there. They go and do all that, right? If it is a large contract, and they go and study the company, what kind of loans they have taken, whether they default to the bank. So some of these things we can do. We can ask them also, give me a banker certificate and all that. So financial risk, geopolitical risk, and then of course the risk of delivery. The delivery risk is that whether how much of the order booking they have. Suppose you're sort of giving an order to a vendor and he's already loaded 80-90% and still wants to take your job. There's a good chance he'll not be able to deliver. Right? There are a lot of people say that this price is very good, he's very good, but he takes the order, he's not able to deliver because he's not able to expand the speed we want, and he's already full with the existing customers, right? So that's another area where we feel that 30 to 40% of our value should not be more than that. If he's doing more than that, then he doesn't have the bandwidth. So even though he may be very competitive, so I always say that it's not always to load the PO or the contract to L1. You got to go to L2 if required, but based on these conditions, with the justification why we are going there. Right? So I think these are the three areas which we have to, because it is not always price. So the risk has to be checked. Right? Because the business guy will say that you got a good price to me, but the customer is not happy because delivery is not happened.
What kind of steps companies could take to safeguard against these risks?
So there's a governance team independently working with the CPO or the head of the procurement or what it is. Their job is to check each and every transaction. That is the only way. So the strategic guy, the shared service, they know that these guys are there as like watchdogs. And they're not like investigating agencies. Their job is to make them understand, make them feel there will be a lot of new people joining, make them understand that this path is not right. There is a risk here. So we used to have a weekly risk evaluation review of all the suppliers along with the corporate risk from the company, because they will also be involved. And so that is one area mandatory meeting I cannot skip every week. To review the risk on financial, geopolitical, this thing, whether how. So this is an area where we have to review. And that's one area. We can have all these teams. You got to have frequent reviews, not like once a month and all, every week. So that rigor has to.
Got it. So a lot of operational rigor that goes
That goes on, yeah. But you got to review so that, there's a seriousness in the job, what they're doing. If you don't review as head of the department, or they will say that nobody's reviewing, I don't know what we are doing. So they'll also lose interest. So that's very important that we encourage them the work what they're doing. So they do a better job.
Makes sense. Let's move on to RFP now. Yeah. Can you unpack for us what is an RFP and what are the ingredients of a good RFP?
Yeah, I mean, what I do is I say that before we get into RFP, a customer has given order to us, and in turn we have to find partners, right? We do the RFP. But before that, I start with them that, you do an RFI, get the information from the supplier. You don't know, because things are changing very fast. New players are coming in. So please, if you have the time, and that's the reason the guy has to get involved early. So when he gets involved, he can send an RFI to the potential suppliers or even somebody whom he doesn't know, and get the information whether they have this. Once we see that information is matching with the what the customer wants, then we convert that into a proposal and send the RFP. So the RFI, or we call that RFX process. So RFX process starts with an RFI, then RFP, and then RFQ.
Got it. So first we receive the information, we understand if that particular
capable of doing
is
that.
worthwhile
Yeah.
of doing that.
Right.
Then we ask them for a particular proposal. Right.
And
so it's in some ways also reducing of the funnel of suppliers that we are dealing with.
Exactly.
And then based on the RFP responses, we may funnel it down further and then ask a smaller number of suppliers for RFQs, which is proposal request for
quotation. Yeah. And RFI is an area where you build in the risk, whether he has, what is his financial stability, what country he's from, what kind of customer base he has, how much is the customer. So there are a lot of bunch of questions we have, and which can be designed. It's not like some template and all. It can be very customized to what the business you're in. And then to get that thing, then you get filter it out, then you get the RFP. Then RFQ, you can do a reverse auction if it is a very standard work, right? It's not very complicated. You can do a reverse auction. So call those 10 suppliers or 5 suppliers, and you can do online bidding, and it will be very fair, and everybody can watch, the business head can watch. And so it's not that somebody suggested with procurement or somebody known to somebody suggested, and all that can be avoided.
So in an RFP, is there no commercial that are being proposed by the supplier?
It's everything. In the RFP, it will be, generally they will give the contractual requirements, like, how much time they need, what are the payment terms, whether they're agreeing with our payment terms and all. They can give the price also, proposal. So it's not that some people give, but some people, they'll just say that, please accept me all this proposal as per RFI, what we are given. And if there are any deviation, we can discuss with them, into the minor. And then we can go for a quote. But suppliers can also give a quotation in the proposal. But that quotation is only for budgetary purpose. You do a formal quotation and then go for a reverse bidding or one more round of negotiation. That's the final pricing.
There seem to be at least 3-4 steps into from in terms of RFI, RFP, RFQ, and then perhaps even a reverse auction negotiation.
So reverse auction is part of the RFQ. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
But still, I would imagine it takes a couple of weeks, maybe a month to go through all of it, maybe longer.
No, it can happen. It can happen. Rohit, it can happen. See, that's the reason we tell them to get involved early. So when early involvement is there, the contract has not come to the company as of now, but we are talking to the potential customer. That's the time they get involved. So they already get prepared on this. So those are the passive lead times the procurement team has, which is not impacting your business. So once the contract comes, then the time starts, right? Before the contract comes, the procurement gets involved, right? And he's in the calls with the customer. He's just a passive listener, right? He doesn't, the business head or sales guys are there in the call. So that's the reason. Once you do the RFI and you have a very clear, when the contract comes, you do the proposal and RFQ, you can do it in 3 days, 4 days, maximum week's time. I mean, I have done that in many cases in 3 days, 4 days, right? You give a setup time. If it is a multi-country, you give different time zones. They'll all get into the system. And it's very, very quick. And you don't need, because earlier what used to do, the government and all, they'll send the big document, the courier and all that thing is all gone. So that's the reason it used to take a month and all. The whole process, RFP to RFQ, is just maximum a week. And even week is very high. 2 days, 3 days, that's it.
Got it. Would you do all this for all of the spends, or would you have a certain kind of maybe like a dollar threshold to say, hey, any spend above this dollar threshold, we will go through this whole process. Anything lower than that, we may have a different, maybe an easier or a quicker process to go through.
No, that's true. I mean, you don't do for everything. Let's say that you want to, somebody, the CEO of the company wants to use an Amex card, right? And he wants to, and he has gone to some place and he has seen some very nice book for his leaders. He wants to swipe the card. I mean, you don't do all this process, right? So that those things are understood. Like there's a limit of, generally we say that $500 you can buy through your card, right? Based on whom you're giving the card. And that is governed by the finance, right? Whom you want to give. Like you want to give to the leaders, you want to give it to your, whatever it is, the sales head or somebody. They can go and spend $500, swipe the card or $1,000. So that's one kind of spend which we don't get involved. The second kind of spend is all your events and all this thing, right? Small events, like, So less than 1 lakh, less than $1,000 and all that. We just say, just go ahead and buy. Just have a process that you have got the correct price and there's a proper invoice and that's it. So we do this process of this RFI and all for, especially for large spends and standard procurement, right? It's not that you're doing you're buying a spacecraft, which is, you have only two vendors, ISRO and maybe somebody, right? So that's a different buying. But when you're buying manpower or buying services, you're buying some IT hardware, there are multiple players, right? Let's say IT hardware. You have HP, you have Dell, you have all these guys, right? So you can, and they're all big players. You can still do the RFP and RFI, reverse auction with them, right? But not for all the spend. So where to cut off what to spend, it's a company wise. Like in my company, we told up to $1,000, don't worry, right? About $10,000, don't worry, right? You just maintain some simple governance principle that you have two suppliers, you have a quotation, just go and spend that. But anything about $10,000, so it all depends on the limit what you put, and that's to be discussed along with CFO and the audit committee and finalize it. But as a process, I will not, even audit committee says that IT hardware, you just buy it, yeah, it's okay. No, then that's against the procurement process.
Got it. Procurement is certainly a multi-party process, right? There are a bunch of people from within a company that are getting involved that touch the process and approve their bit of the process. And of course, there are then external parties that are involved.
Yeah.
How do you ensure such a large multi-party process remains on track? And then as a procurement team, you are able to deliver to the business user whatever they are looking to procure in the right time frame?
No, it's a very good question. I mean, this is the problem the most of the procurement leaders and the person who is working with the business face. The business guy who is in the field, he's sitting in the customer in somewhere in Dallas or somewhere, and he says, the customer is yelling at me that why it is not closed. I'm sitting in their office. Can you help me? And here we find out the calls comes to me or to the person who is handling the procurement for the business unit. And the guy says that I'm helpless. I've done all the work. It is sitting with the finance person, or it is sitting with somebody in the chain. And that guy is on leave or something, or, he's not able to access this. So this is the thing where we tell the people, you as a person, you are responsible. You cannot say that I have done my job. Now it is pending with some guy in the system in finance and he's not approving it. So I keep telling them, don't put that blame. The blame has to come to you. So if he's not doing the job, okay, this one time, let him take the time. Next time we got with the data, go to his boss and say that so many hours we are lost because the guy could not open his system and approve it, or he has forgotten to see it, or he's traveling in a plane or he's in vacation for 15 days. So we always have in the system two levels. One is the person who is approving, and if he's not approving in 24 hours, it goes to the second person. So we have to bring those checks and balances in the system and not really get into this. It'll always happen. Somebody is sitting on it, not that they're doing intentionally. Probably they are busy in something else or is on leave. So we got to always have this system control thing, right? And if you are doing it manually, it is not going to work. It is a small company, it will work. But if you are a multi-organization, multi-country, you got to put the systems in place and measure. So we used to bring the analytics also for information. And every month I will circulate to all the business leaders who are in the approving chain, the business person, the finance person, the governance person. I will make analytics how many days one acquisition was sitting with him. And that will go to him, his boss, and to my CFO. So that's the only way we can bring enlighten the people and take corrective action.
Makes sense. On the contracting side, how do you know that you are getting the right price for a particular product or a service that you're procuring? Because it's not always about the price only, but that is one of the main components of any contract.
So that's a good point. Like, if you take, that's a big challenge I had when we went into IT services. So in manufacturing, it was easy because we used to think called a clean sheet, which, the McKinsey guys have started a long back, but we used to do that before that, or a should cost, right? What is the ideal cost, right? Like suppose you're buying a UPS or you are buying a laptop. So what is the cost actually? So we used to do the calculation. So what is the laptop has major component? It has memory, it has a Intel chip or a AMD chip, and then there's a PCB. So we know what is the 80% of the cost is, and the other one is plastic assembly and blah blah margin. And so we used to do the should costing or ideal cost for every item we buy. The same thing we do for the IT services. Hardware we used to do. Software is not easy because there's an IP related, there's a design, there's all that thing. So software, we always do a partner comparison. And there are a lot of new startups have come where we do comparison of a similar services. What should be the cost? What is the partner cost should be? So that is one tool you can use. The other thing for services, just manpower. It's just the manpower cost. You can get those data from the published data in the government. What kind of skilled labor and IT and what is the average monthly rate or hourly rate? And what is the thing? If the difference is too much of a variation, you can start negotiation. So I always put that when they come to me approval for anything, anybody, they'll always show what is a rack rate or in that country or this thing, and what this guy is quoting, and what is the gap, right? So that's the gap we can negotiate and bring it closer. So there is a process of doing it, not just comparing three quotes. That three quotes is also important, but it's also important to know what the cost is for them.
So basically bring in the market data,
Market
benchmarks.
And if it's an engineering product, it's easy to do that because you can cost the product.
Got it. Very cool. Beyond the pricing for a really optimized contract, what are the other elements that you think from a procurement perspective it makes real sense to have a good eye on them and optimize for those?
In addition to the cost, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, see, the other areas are basically what is the response time? If there are some engineering changes, the customer will make changes every time after they give the contract. There will be a lot of changes coming. How quickly the response time is for them to make the changes? Because it's a chain, the customer will give it to the company and we have to work with the partners. So the response time is a very important thing. And then the project execution team, what kind of tools and they use. I mean, which we do that at the evaluation stage itself. How is their analytics working? What kind of data they give to us, right? In addition to the cost, like what is the progress of the project? How many, suppose there are 10, 100 different sites where people have to be deployed in multiple countries. We had that challenge that which country they will do. The customer will say, I need these countries to be done first. And then we'll have a lot of challenges in those countries. How do we ensure that what customer wants and what the partner is having trouble? How do we make that thing, we work with them to ensure that those things are done? And what is the time to deliver a site? Suppose there are 100 sites to be done. We have to go live in next 3 months and we have 100 sites to be done. And country wise it is. So this is where these are the important thing in addition to the overall cost what he has given. So the response time
Awesome.
and response to changes. Yeah.
All right. Why don't we now move to talk a little about the future of procurement? Let's level set and understand perhaps what are the biggest challenges facing procurement today and how can organizations prepare to tackle them well?
I feel if you divide into the procurement or purchasing into, the thing we did earlier, the shared service and the vendor registration and converting a contract and all that. We have done to a great extent automation and brought in RPA. Now with the AI coming in, this whole thing can be fully automated. And I feel sorry for the people who are doing the shared service, but I feel happy that they can do more value add work. They're all intelligent people, but just because of their communication skills not great, or they are not done education in English university, English college, or speaking college, their English is not great. They are stuck in some of this transaction job, but they're very, very intelligent guys. They can use their brains in some other area and not do this transaction of sitting every day and creating contracts review and all. All this contract review is already there, today. And with the AI coming in, we can review that in contract, some 100 pages contract in probably in 30 minutes or 1 hour. It can tell all the throughout everything, right? So I think the automation, AI coming in, RPA coming in. RPA is getting more relevant now in procurement. All the recurring activities can be converted into a robotic thing where things can happen very fast and it will work 24/7. Today, our guys, whatever we do, there's a holiday, there's a vacation, all that thing, which doesn't work in a country like in Dubai. It works on Sunday, right? But we are closed on Sunday here. So how does it work? So we used to have special teams and all that. And so those are extra people. So that's the benefit of this thing. On the strategic side, the AI and they will help them a lot to do the study. They don't have to use their brain to too much of that to Google search and do the study. Suppose they can just say that I'm talking to this company out of that 5 are listed companies, 4 are not listed. It will get me all the data of the listed company, whether they have any filing, whether they have got any blacklisting, whether they have any loan default. All the data will come to me in this thing, and my decision can be very quick. I don't even have to send an RFP to them if I feel some of them, or they are politically connected with a person, or they are having some terrorist connection. All these are part of the risk, and it will all throw out to me, and I can validate that, and not just blindly follow. Which today we do manually, right? Manually means somebody has to do that work, even through the internet. So that's the benefit the system will give. And the strategic sourcing will be more strategic. The person can use his technical knowledge to work on that instead of doing the data collection. So the data's lakes and whatever you call now is all available. Just pull from the data lake stream and get all this information what we need, which is very difficult today, right? And I think Indian companies, all the unlisted companies in India, we already have that. I'm already using some of them today for some of the customers where I can get all the information about the company. Right.
Makes sense. You talk about whether it's RPA, AI, ML. I mean, there are already a bunch of different software solutions available to this industry, and more are going to come for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a framework that you recommend to companies in terms of choosing the right kind of technology solutions for their procurement teams?
Yeah, I think see if you take RPA again, it's a like bot basically. You got to use RPA. You have to decide internally what process you want to automate it, and how do you decide what process to be automated? What are the processes which are taking the repetitive process, which is repetitive and recurring? So you got to use that and bring the bot there and put a RPA, right? What technology you use on the AI side, whether you got to use a generative AI or just a simple machine learning and use a portal. Today, most of the software partners, they are giving the AI as a feature, which is part of it. It's it's not that you're asking for it and then they give. It's becoming like SAP Rise. If you take SAP Rise, all that thing already has the AI built in, and we can use that to bring the that. So earlier it was tough for me to decide what technology to use, what portal to use. Now, no more. Most of these procure to pay portals have these features now. And in addition to that, you've got to be technology agnostic also the head of the procurement. You cannot say that I'm a great negotiator, I can do all this thing, but he has to understand the landscape and spend some time with the business leaders, spend time with the IT professionals, because everything is not known to everyone, right? So you got to understand the technology side. I'm a mechanical engineer, but it's got nothing to mechanical here, right? So you got to spend that time to understand technology, read some thing, attend seminars, and then bring the right technology. It is not like no, you are a godfather, you know everything what's going on. You got to integrate. You got to integrate and work, and then also look at the ROI, because the company will say that if I do this, what is the ROI? The ROI has to be within 1 year, 2 years. If nobody will give anything, if somebody is approving about 2 years, something great. People will look at 1 year result. If I'm going to spend some 20, 30 lakhs or 1 crore on something, what is the ROI? Right? So we got to look at that and decide on the technology and the timing, right? That's the reason I say that don't get hung up with one technology for everything. Have multiple technology and then have a layer on top of that to integrate all that, so that you have the flexibility to change and do some, it's like Velpuri, mix and match.
All right, very cool. Looking back, what advice would you have for young professionals aspiring to be leaders?
In the procurement area?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is the passion, energy level, integrity. If these three things are there, and then you have kind of what you call the inclination toward technology. Like if you put a chemical engineer in this, and he doesn't understand first of all software and all that, right? So I'm not saying he doesn't. A lot of chemical guys are there, but I'm just saying you got to look at a guy who is got all this thing. He should be technology agnostic. You'd be willing to learn, spend time. And I'm always looking for a person who says that I know everything versus a person I don't know much and I want to learn. I think that's very important. When cloud came in, a lot of people were talking what happened, and today 80-90% of business running cloud today. So it all depends on where you get in, what kind of integration you have to do, and what stage you have to get in, so that the ROI thing is kept in mind. And at the same time, you can able to convince the CEO and CFO why we need that. The first step is that's the problem. How will you convince the CFO? Because CFO is very busy with so many things, right? He's got the last thing to listen to you that I want to spend $1 million on that. He will probably, you've got to go with a clear thought why you want to spend that 1 million. What is your ROI on that? Because technology is not just to have some fun. Okay, let me have SAP. Where I go and tell customer I have SAP. Those days are over, right? The technology should help you to reduce cost, help to reduce stack time, help to bring the process in time, bring risk mitigation. If it does all that, and then I get an ROI, that's where I feel that's important for a person. I feel.
All right. If you can change one thing about your career, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a great thing. Yeah, maybe I should have spent more time on understanding software technology, getting into probably learning some of the software. One of my things my boss always used to say that tomorrow you have a 100 people team or a 50 people team. And tomorrow, if I tell you that all your 50 people are out of the company and still the business has to run, you're the only guy, how will you do it? So you should be hands on, but I mean, your nose should be in, your hands off. That means if given a choice, like, it's like a business case risk, right? You are able to do the work on your own without depending on others, even though you may be head of the department with, are you hands on? Brass tech, can you go and run a report? Many of the managers don't know how to run a report. They'll ask some guy, can you run a report? So I feel it's very important. The guy should be, so when you're talking to a subordinate, he knows that I know how to run a report. So it doesn't give some kind of a bull, right? So you got to be hands-on, but at the same time managing. So I feel one of the things I could have done is got into some of this trainings and learned some software coding, some of the things which I could have easily done, which I didn't do, right? So maybe that's, I feel But I'm learning now, but it's late now, right?
All right. Well, Murali, that brings us to our lightning round. It should be a fun, quick 5 minute session where I'm going to ask you some questions, some very simple questions, and all I need are immediate responses. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Let's start with something simple. Sweet or savory? What do you prefer?
Sweet.
Books or podcasts?
Both.
Are you a thinker or a doer?
Thinker.
Introvert or extrovert?
A mix. Not completely introvert, not extrovert. Mix.
Okay. Filter coffee or masala chai?
Filter coffee.
How does someone impress you?
Very difficult. Someone who is gives the idea that I know everything. I don't like that. Somebody who is down to earth at the same time got stuff and he talks sense. I think that's more important to me than somebody who says that I know everything and So
Okay. If not a procurement leader, what would you be?
yeah, I keep debating that. Maybe I would have gone into some other area, right? Maybe the production area or operations area, which I would have not lasted too long.
All right. If today you can be the head of procurement for any company for a day, which company would you choose and why?
I think that I will keep it confidential, if not right. But yeah, I would like to work with a probably a startup now because I have seen corporates, large corporates. With my experience and if I can add value, I'll be very happy to work on a startup, but not as like ground level startup. Probably at a P level funding startup where I can add value and create a system for them, create a procurement process for them, and then they see value in that instead of already an established company where you're going to do incremental changes.
Makes sense. You are kind of like semi-retired, if I may say so.
Yeah, because I have some other passions to do,
Right.
so I need that time, like traveling and some spirituality and all that. So
Right.
I would like to spend that time, which I was not able to do earlier.
I was going to ask, what is your ideal place to retire? Is Bangalore the answer, or do you have something else in mind?
Somehow I like Bangalore with all this chaos and traffic. Wherever I go, after some time, you feel like coming to Bangalore. So I like Bangalore.
All right. What is the number one item on your bucket list?
On what respect?
Anything that is top of priority in terms of things that you want to do.
Yeah, I want to get more active physically in the sense I got to take some sports more seriously. It's more of a leisure thing. I play a lot of games, but it's not very serious. So I got to take some games very seriously, more from a health point of view and also improve on that.
What do you play more?
As of now, yeah, there's some games which are very boring. Me and my son, we play golf like every week, but not regular. As of now, we got stopped. But badminton is another area. And I play TT and tennis also. I was part of the college team and all. So I would like to play tennis and TT also.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Who is your role model, personally or professionally, if you have had during your professional career?
There are many actually, Rohit. I won't point to one. There are many who was like a role model for me in the companies I worked. Externally, it was more of a learning because unless you work with them, it's like telling that my role model is Shah Rukh Khan. But that is like, you don't know. It's more of a what work he has done and you like him, right? But for me, role model is somebody whom I worked with. And I had many role models in various companies. So they may not be relevant in the overall picture. But if you say there's a role model like Bill Gates or somebody, Elon Musk, but I like Elon Musk because he is very clear that he doesn't like finance guys. He doesn't like books of accounts and all that. He's a technology guy. And he says, get the technology in place. All other things will fall in place. And put the teams in place. Work on the technology. Go to the dirty your hand in the shop floor. And I like that actually.
Very cool. The last question. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Yeah, I'm straightforward, generally easy to reach, and flexible.
All right. Murali, thank you so much for all the time and perspectives here. This was a pretty enjoyable and pretty insightful show. Appreciate your time.
Welcome. It was nice. Yeah, some of the questions you asked, I never thought of it earlier, but it rekindled my thoughts, and thanks for all that.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Murali. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope you'll find at least one nugget that is beneficial to you. As always, thanks for listening to Strategy of Finance. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or our website, www.strategyoffinance.com. Your comments will make us better. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter and share the word in your network so other people in the finance community can also benefit. Be sure to tune in next week for another engaging conversation. Until then, this is Rohit Agarwal, and remember to learn, grow, and inspire.